Hello friends, I'm Raja here again with the module 3 of Marketing Basics. And in module 3, we will continue with our last segment that we started, which is Know Your Consumer. And this is the part 2 of Know Your Consumer. In the last section of Know Your Consumer, we studied about that how to positively influence the purchase decision of a consumer, and we studied about something called as the decision making dynamics. We understood that in any purchase decision, be it any category, there are four key stakeholders, which is an influencer, a decider, a user, and a shopper. And before we really kind of start developing our marketing mix as a marketer, it is very important for you to understand this dynamics and to identify these key stakeholders, and also to understand that which are the stakeholders play the most important role in the purchase decision, and you need to develop a marketing program for those stakeholders. Hence, marketing is not always only about the end user. It can also be about managing the decider, managing the influencer, or managing the shopper if they are different to each other. And we learned it through some examples. We saw the example of a brand like Kinder Joy, where we saw that the brand targets both the mother and the child, and the product, the promotions, they are specifically built keeping the child in mind, whereas the communication targets the mother as well as to a certain extent the child. And similarly, we saw in a completely different category like paints, where influencers play a very, very critical role, and hence there is an influencer marketing program and there is a consumer marketing program. Both are developed because without both being executed well, it will not lead to the final purchase decision positively towards a particular brand. So this is what we understood in our first part of knowing your consumer. The question is that just by knowing whom to target, is it really enough for a marketer? If you know, okay, there is a mother who is the decision maker in case of a brand like Kinder Joy, and then there is a kid who is uh, a key influencer and also plays a role in the decision making. So just by knowing that, okay, I need to target a mother and I need to target a kid, is it really enough for a marketer to develop the marketing mix? So let us look at the example of Kinder Joy itself. So let's say for Kinder Joy, if we talk about mothers, there can be many kind of mothers, right? And here I have put in four pictures which depicts different kind of mothers. So the first picture is, it's a mother of a very small baby, right? The second picture is a very loving mother having a slightly older kid. The third one is very, it's an old mother, right? Having a grown up kid. And the fourth example is a very strict mother, at least the picture depicts that. So now the question is that if there are so many kind of mothers, should the brand target all mothers? That is the question, right? And clearly, if we look at these different set of mothers, very clearly some of them will not be an ideal target audience for the brand like Kinder Joy, because for a small baby, Kinder Joy is not the right product. So therefore, this is definitely not the right target audience. The second profile possibly fits the bill, which is a young mother with a kid which is also small but slightly grown up. The third one, the both the child and the mother are quite grown up. So clearly, it's not the right suited target audience for the brand. And the fourth one it's a question mark, because if a mother is very strict, it is very unlikely that she would take the decision of buying a confectionery for her child. And I have put a question mark because it could be possible that a strict mother will buy a confectionery, but it's unlikely. So clearly, out of these four profiles, it is one profile, this particular profile, which is the second profile. Clearly, this profile is what we can say is the right target audience for the brand. So we can now see that while we started by saying that mother is one of the key targets for a brand like Kinder Joy, but then as we moved ahead, we could dissect the profile of mothers into different kinds, and then we could see that there is one kind of profile which suits best for the brand compared to the other kind of profile. And that you know is the is really the next step. So once we have understood that, okay, there is a decision making dynamics, there are various stakeholders, and we have identified the key stakeholders, the next step is really to understand that, okay, those key stakeholders, can I really divide them into different profiles, and which profile within that key stakeholder is going to be my target audience. And the reason behind it is that for any product, you pick up any product on earth, in any category, it cannot be relevant to everyone in the universe, because there are different profile of people, whether it is their age, their sex, their personality, their attitudes. There can be different profile of people, and different profile people have different needs. So you cannot be targeting everyone in the universe. You will have to break the universe into different profiles, and then you will have to see that which one of those profiles is most suited for your brand or your product or your category. So that is really, is the key that we are going to learn in this segment, because this is really the next step in understanding the consumer. And once you have understood this, then you can really move ahead and start developing a marketing mix. So, and as I was saying, that this is true for every industry. Let's look at a few examples. Okay. So if I look at, let's say, an industry like paint, if we were to think that, and let's talk about influencers, which is this painter, contractor, interior designer, architect. Even in that customer segment, if you are selling a designer finish, right, which is a very expensive kind of a paint, uh, very definitely you are going to target a different kind of a contractor, a different kind of a painter, or a different kind of interior designers who take such kind of premium services. Whereas if you were to target the influencer segment for a product like distemper, which is a very cheap product, you will target a different kind of a painter, different kind of a contractor, because every contractor who takes on a job of distemper may not take a job of designer finish, because designer finish is a specialized job, it's a more premium job. Therefore premium households take it. So even in an influencer segment, we can have different kind of influencers, different profile of influencers, depending upon what kind of product or what kind of product subcategory we are talking about. Similarly, if we talk about a very B2B kind of a category like uh, pharmaceuticals, where primarily we are targeting doctors, depending upon what kind of uh, pharmaceutical product you are trying to sell, your doctor segment will be different, right? So if you're targeting to sell a generic drug, you will target a different segment of doctor, versus if you're trying to sell a non-generic drug or a very specialized super premium drug, your target audience of the doctor will be very distinct from the others. And similarly, if we look at let's say, a complete B2B segment, like you are a raw material supplier. So even in that case, if you are targeting, a very common raw material, your customer segment will be different versus if you are targeting a very specialized raw material which leads to a very specialized kind of product, possibly your target customer segment will be different. So no matter which industry we are talking about, segmentation of your consumer or your customer is very, very critical, because if you have rightly segmented the universe and if you are targeting the right segment, then you will be relevant as a brand to that particular segment because your solution will be relevant to them. Otherwise, we will be shooting in the dark, and the money that I spent in marketing is going to be less effective, or I would say ineffective, because there can be two approaches. One is a specific approach, another is a spray and pray approach. So spray and pray, as the name itself kind of suggests, that you will use a machine gun and you will think that okay, one of the bullets is going to hit the right target, whereas specific is that you have done your homework, you know whom to target, and therefore you don't need 100 bullets, you just need one bullet. So it's a slightly bad example, but I gave this example to explain the need for being specific when it comes to consumer profile or customer profile. So the question is, therefore, what are the steps to understand the consumer? And just to summarize, what we have discussed so far is that the starting point is understand the decision-making dynamics, plot the key stakeholders in this decision-making dynamics, and once you have done that, then identify the right segment of your customer or your consumer for the product or service or the category that you are dealing with. And this process that we spoke so far is called as the process of segmentation. Okay, and when you divide the universe into different subgroups of people, because those different subgroups of people exhibit similar needs and similar characteristics. So this is the process of segmentation, and this is the next step after you have understood the decision making dynamics and you have identified the key stakeholders. Then within those stakeholders, you go ahead and do the segmentation. So how do we segment consumers, right? And it's not rocket science. It's very simple. And to put simply, if you have a product, you need to start thinking that okay, what will be those parameters in terms of consumer profile which will influence the purchase of a particular kind of a product, a particular kind of a brand, a particular kind of a category. So let's say, again coming back to, let's say, the brand like Kinder Joy, and I'm taking this example so that we have continuity and we are able to relate. Okay, so here what did we really see? We saw that there was uh, uh, it was not applicable for all kind of mothers of all kind of age. So possibly, we are talking about here a young to middle-aged mother. That is the kind of uh, age profile of the mother that we are talking about, because very clearly an age profile of the mother is going to be a determinant whether that mother can be a target audience for a brand like Kinder Joy or not. And most importantly, the child's age is also a very important determinant. Similarly, the household income is going to be an important determinant, because ultimately, it's it is an expensive product. So every kind of household of every kind of income may not be able to afford such a kind of product. And finally, what is the parenting style? Definitely a disciplined mother, a very strict mother may not be the right target audience for a brand like this, but a loving mother, may be the kind of right target audience. So very clearly, if we look at this example, we are talking about that we need to look at the mother's age, we need to look at the child's age, we need to look at, what kind of household income, we need to look at what kind of parenting style. And if we look at these parameters seems to be the influential parameters which is going to determine whether a particular consumer of a particular age, having a particular kind of child, having a particular kind of income, and having a particular kind of attitude towards parenting is going to be a consumer for a brand like Kinder Joy. And we can do this exercise for any category. It's a very simple exercise. So let's look at, let's say segment like toothpaste, for example. So what will determine a toothpaste purchase? Very clearly, it can be the age. Okay, if you are a if you are an older guy, maybe you are more conscious about your dental health, and you may have problems to do with teeth, and therefore your needs could be very different. Versus if you are a college going young kid, your needs from oral care may be very different, because you may require fresh breath so that you are attractive to the girls, and therefore you might require something which delivers that. Similarly, income, right? I mean, depending upon what kind of household income do you have, you will buy a premium brand or you will buy a cheaper brand. Geography could matter a lot. I mean, depending upon which part of the world you come from, do you could determine, let's say, whether you want a halal toothpaste or a non-halal toothpaste. There can be many things which uh, can, geography itself can be determinant of the choices that one consumer makes. Similarly, attitudes and beliefs. What do you really, believe in? Example, that okay, I am a vegan consumer, I believe in vegan. So maybe, there is a, therefore you'll seek products that are vegan, and therefore even in toothpaste you could have vegan toothpaste. Or you are a believer in Ayurveda, so therefore you might seek toothpastes which is Ayurvedic toothpaste. Uh, Similarly, uh, teeth issues, lifestyle, usership, whether you are a heavy user of toothpaste or a light user of toothpaste, could determine a lot of stuff. And similarly, you know, uh, uh, food habits, religion, household size, all these parameters, if we see, could be a determinant of which kind of toothpaste you're going to buy, and hence you can do the segmentation using a lot of these parameters. Similarly, a category like shampoo, again, a lot of similar kind of parameters is going to be a determinant which kind of shampoo are you seeking. So I have given these examples for you to relate that doing segmentation is not rocket science, it's not very difficult, it's very simple logic. And if you apply the logic, you can yourself, break the universe into different kind of consumers, because it's very common sense. So what are the common segmentation parameters that as a marketer you can use? So you can use demographics, which is what age, sex, income, etc. You can use social status, which is whether what kind of social strata you come from. You can use culture, ethnicity, language, nation, determines your choices. Lifestyle determines your choices, your activity, your interests. Psychological, your attitude, beliefs determines your choices. Whether you are a user, non-user, heavy user determines your choices. Um your use, your situational use of determines your choices, that whether you are a you are a you have certain requirements out of home, you have certain requirements during certain festivals. So even those things can determine your choices, and these are the parameters that we can apply to therefore segment our consumer profiles in relation to the categories that we are dealing with. So it's very simple. You can just sit and just think, okay, what are those parameters which can determine the choices differently? Okay, and the moment you start thinking from that standpoint, it will uh, lead you to designing segmentation profiles of consumers or customers. So, giving you sim just to kind of a summarization, that okay, therefore, how do you spot your target audience. So while I have given you the construct that you can use different parameters, and you can see that whether these parameters really kind of influence the choices, uh, and once you have using that construct, once you have identified various segments, then the next question comes ki, okay, whether I should, you have 3 4 segments, then the question comes that okay, which one of these segments I can target, and that to do that, it's a simple 4 uh, things that you need to look at. First is that the target segment that you're talking about, can you reach that target segment through media or through channel, right? So is it accessible? So it should not be a vague target audience which you cannot reach only, because then it's a vague profile. Uh, Second and most important is that, is there a sizable opportunity in that target segment? Okay, are there enough number of consumers which therefore provide you a sizable opportunity in revenue terms? The third is that, will you be profitable if you reach out to that target, right? Because you might have a sizable opportunity, but to convert that opportunity into revenue, the amount of money that you have to spend is so high that it will not be profitable. Then maybe sometimes you may not go behind that target audience. And finally, even if all of these is a tick mark, the big tick mark that has to come, that okay, do you have something special, in terms of, do you have an advantage, do you have a strength which will enable you to win in that target segment? Because if it is not the case, then you will not be able to convert that consumer. Okay, so these are the 4 parameters or 4 filters from which you need to see the target audiences, the target segments that you have defined, and then you can pick, okay, this is the target segment that I will go behind. So finally, let's learn this through a small example. So let's look at shampoo. Uh, in a shampoo is a shampoo is a shampoo. But if you look at look at the category a little bit more closely, we can see that how this segment has been able to sub-segment the consumers. So starting from, if you look at kids, there is a specific segment of mothers of newborn whose needs from hair care for their children could be very different, and that's why there is a newborn a baby shampoo that is there. And then as the kid starts growing up, those mothers may have very different needs for their toddlers and their kids, and hence there is a children's shampoo segment which emerged. And as kids grow into teens, the mother's needs from hair care of their children could be very different, and targeting those needs, there are brands which target specifically that segment, which is mothers of teens to young adults. And then when a kid grows up and going to college or working, girls, they have very different needs from hair care, because now they are independent, they want fashionable hair, and that is a target segment in itself, and we have brands which targets that segment specifically. And then as you grow up, become more independent, your needs from hair care could now become very different from when you were in college, and and that segment also has a lot of money to spend, disposable income. So a lot of premium brands target that segment. And then there is a segment of, slightly older upper middle class women who are facing severe hair fall issues, and that segment has completely different needs, and that's how, a lot of specialized Ayurvedic oils targets, Ayurvedic shampoos targets that kind of a segment. And finally, we might also have a very digital savvy working woman or working men kind of a segment who are seeking customized solutions. So there are even brands which are, just available online and giving you customized solution depending upon your hair type, etc. So if you just look at the category of shampoo, there are so many ways we can segment it. In fact, I have not, still included many more segments. Let's say a segment who is only and only seeking problem from dandruffs, and that is in a specific age band where dandruff issues are the highest, and that age band, which is a younger age band, possibly we can say around 13 14 years to 30 years, where sebum secretion is the highest and you have a lot of dandruff, and that is a segment in itself, and there are shampoos which only targets that segment. So you can really slice and dice any for any category. You can slice and dice consumers, because if we just sit down with a pen and paper we can do that, because we ourselves would know that different types of uh, people have different kind of needs, and once we do that, we will be in a position to segment our category, and then we can see that okay, where my brand can be relevant, where my brand can be unique, where my brand can win, and that is the segment that you go behind. So to summarize what we have learned so far, I think what we have learned is uh, that first of all we need to plot the decision making dynamics, identify who are the key stakeholders. Once we have done that, then we can identify that okay, now these are the stakeholders. If I have to further subsegment my stakeholders, I can do an analysis of okay, what will be those parameters which might relate to my customer profile or my consumer profile, and those parameters will be uh, play an influential role in the choices that they will make very differently. And once we are able to do that, we will be able to find out different segments, and then we can define those different segments uh, of customer and consumer, and then we can use the four different filters, that whether those segments are accessible, whether those segments are profitable, whether those segments have enough number of people, therefore there is a revenue opportunity, and finally do I have what I call as the right to win. Do I have the right to win for in those segments, so that when I target them, they are going to come to me and choose my brand and my product. So this is what we learned today so far, including the last module. And finally, once we have done all of these, the big question that will come, that once we have even identified the right consumer segment, we need to understand that what are the needs of this consumer segment, what are the needs of this customer segment. Because unless we understand this, we can't start spending money, because I'll still shoot in the dark. So what we will do now is that in our next module, this is the area that we will focus, because this is going to be the key area, that okay, now you know whom do you want to target, but do you really know them? Do you really know their needs? How to go about it? This is what we are going to learn in the next module. So thank you so much. Uh, if you want to reach out to me, I have given you my LinkedIn address, I have given you my Gmail address, and you have my mobile number. So you can reach out to me if you have any questions. And till then, thank you and see you again. Thank you so much.